Very good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the networking event Delhi. Because we are very short of time, so I think we cannot wait anymore for everybody. We'll start. In the meanwhile, everybody will join us, right? So the second day, we are firstly in the morning today, we will be having the discussion of the moderators. We will be hearing from the moderators of the horizontal sectors of what all discussion has taken place in their groups. And then after that, we will be starting with the breakout sessions of 2 hours each, like we had yesterday in the same manner. So there is a slight change in the halls. So there is no session on 3rd floor today. So all the sessions will be either on the 2nd floor or in the Idea Lounge, which was on the 1st floor on the C block. Right after that, after we will be having all the 8 discussions, then we will be having closing plenary in the evening from 4 to 5. It is scheduled. So before that, I request all the moderators to be ready with the 2-slide presentation, which needs to be given to in the closing plenary. Right. So this is the schedule for today. So we will be starting with the moderator discussion, right? So the first moderation which took place was privacy enhancing technologies. So I request the moderator from Kitina, Mr. Sanchit, and the co-moderator and domain expert from Oracle, Ms. Manju Pandey, to please come up on the stage. Also, I request Saurabh to join. Mics, column, wireless mics. So basically in this session, we will be just highlighting that what all were the major points of discussion in yesterday's session, and also what do you expect that today, how will you be steering the session, and what will be the outcome of the session. So, because today is the concluding session. So in today's session, that what all discussions will take place today and what all happened yesterday. Just concluding kind of remarks. Yeah. We just may wait for the mic there. Just getting. I can even stand here and say, अभी वो mic ला रहे हैं, but that's okay. We can start.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. So we had very interactive discussion today around the privacy enhancement technology, and we looked at every aspect of the input document which has been shared by DOT around the architecture, the compliance, the data exchange. So all those aspects we had done a detailed discussion around it, and we tried to, and moreover, all the requirement we tried to mold around the use cases, because every use cases has got its own nuances there, right? So when we talk about the first part, the architecture itself there, we had a discussion around what are the, first we gave the overview of what are the different technology flavors are available in privacy enhancement technology there. But moreover, what exactly the specific use case requirement is there? Does that particular use case require the data providers having the concern on the PI data or business sensitive data? So primarily the discussion was more around the federated learning there. Right, and definitely all the moderators and co-moderators for the other streams who are participating here, we would like to hear from them as well when they will be presenting here, because like we had at length discussion on the transport, multimodal transport use case, right? A lot of the data which is coming from telcos, right, where the data, what we could gather during the use case discussion during morning as well there, the data will be coming, the data which is coming from telcos, that is more like a very refined data coming from telcos. And all the filtering is getting done at telcos, right? So we are getting an insight from telcos, right? Like a OD metrics, right? In that scenario, what we could figure out that PI concern will be less, because we are heavily banking on the aggregator, because telco is working as an aggregator there, right? So aggregator is taking care of the PI concerns there at their end. But there could be a scenario where we don't have the aggregators, right? Sanchit would like to highlight that.
Hi, I'm Sanchit. As part of yesterday's discussions, like Ms. Pandey said, we've focused on a few cross-cutting areas. So, in fact, the first thing that we have to recognize is the fact that PET is more a horizontal concern, which means that it's going to cut across different verticals that we'll be addressing, and so it has to become a common infrastructure which will get used across different digital twins. So as part of that, one of the core criteria is to define a common minimum architecture, which would be used by different use cases that I believe everybody is a part of already. And so that requires us to recognize, the different kind of data sets available, different providers available, and the tagging of those sets as well. So those are a few things that we discussed yesterday. Obviously, there were a few additional pointers regarding the funding available as well. So the sources of funds that we'll be able to receive, as well as what eventually are going to be the success criteria. One important thing about PET is it's federated, which means it's available at the edge. Since I believe there are a lot of use cases here around edge devices, it also means that there's some possibility of malified actors as well, which we believe can be sort of mitigated by having the right kind of incentives for training these models. These are things which we'll be taking up in today's session, as well as additional risks which may be associated. So my idea as the moderator for this would be to ensure that we come up with a fairly high-level architectural view of how we enforce data governance, exchange of data, networking, some kind of operational architecture as well, before we come to a close for the output document.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sanchit and Ms. Pandey. So actually, PET is a very important module on which we are backing, right? Because we have got so many data providers, we need to address the apprehensions of the data providers, and we need to come up with such an architecture that the data providers can, without fear and with trust on the architecture, can share the data. So that is what I would like to tell that you can focus on, so that we come up with such an architecture that the data insights are shared, but the risk is minimized.
So I think the cornerstone of this discussion regarding PET is going to be very simple. Sabka saath, sabka vishwas. That's literally what you need, because we are talking about getting data from those data sources, and instead of getting them into a centralized location, using the models to train them at the edge, which means the data providers are not going to be parting with the data at any given point in time. Now, this is very different to the traditional way of building machine learning models, where you pretty much always have some kind of a centralized data lake house, whatever you want to call it, and then you use that data repo to then train your models. I think this is a great beginning to do this, because this digital twin initiative is going to, like I said, cut across different sectors as well, and each one of them is potentially highly regulated, and data sharing or mismanaging is a big risk. And so if we can ensure that the data never actually leaves its premises, it ensures that the acceptability of this initiative gains that much more traction. So that's just going to be the idea as well for us.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight it here that the collaboration is very important here, because we are working in a framework of a federated learning there. So even to start the entire initiative there, we would be definitely looking forward to get the data schemas and all from all the data providers which are specific to the use cases there.
Right. Thank you. So any questions or any suggestions from the audience? Yeah, yes.
Did you identify any technologies?
Yeah.
Did you identify any technologies that enhances the privacy?
So there are open source libraries available. Matter of fact, there are quite a few cloud vendors out there, जो कि they actually provide these managed services as well regarding PET as well. So in fact, आज की discussion का core objective would be to identify those managed service providers or those, let's say, open source, closed source libraries that could actually enable us to do this. Now, the good thing is a lot of this is actually built on top of standard networking infrastructure. For instance, if I have to ensure that my data is always kept private, secret, it never gets shared with anybody, there's already enough research in the wild that lets you do it. For instance, there's something called the Samir secret sharing model, which lets you do it. We use MTLS every day, which lets you, send data over an encrypted pipeline as well. So we'll be focusing on those specific, I'll say, well-known technologies which already let you do it. And like I said, there are already good infrastructure solutions out there which let us do that anyway.
I just wanted to add it here that we have a framework from Oracle, is for the differential privacy federated learning framework is there, and we are collaborating with lot of medicine manufacturer in US where we have deployed this framework there. So it's a mature framework based on differential privacy federated learning.
So the solution of Oracle can be one of the component which can be used,
Which can be used
for
as
this
one of the components.
federated architecture. Yeah, thank you. Any other question?
Yeah, you said that the data does not leave that particular, part. Who owns the data? So, without the access to the data, how do you expect any other participant to be able to use it effectively? I mean, privacy enhancing, I do understand you will be hiding certain data, which is, relevant to the privacy of an individual or a company or an entity. But data in general, I mean, that would be the first premise that it's available for the participants within the initiative to be able to use it effectively. So why are we starting with the premise that data will not be available and only those who have will be able to train it?
Great question. Anybody else who has the same question? Just quick show of hands. एक ही और ठीक है, fine. Which means बाकी सबको पता है. So like I said, great question. So the typical way to do this is you take data and then you send it to a centralized location where you train your models, right? So that's a central location. You train models and then you send them out into the wild. Now, इसके अंदर थोड़ा उल्टा हो रहा है, right? उल्टा क्या हो रहा है? Instead of the data going to the model in fact goes to the data. Which means if I am a consumer of the data and I require the data to train my models, मैं पहले क्या करूँगा? I have to create let's say a global model first, right? जिस पे मैं data लेके आता हूँ. That's a traditional way of doing it. यहाँ पे मैं क्या करने वाला हूँ? I'm going to create a global model first, the initial model or whatever.
Base model.
The base model, and then I'm going to send this base model to the edge, and this then will use the compute power of the edge to train it. The edge now there are multiple devices at the edge, multiple infra servers, whatever at the edge. Each of them has access to their own data, and so they all update the model according to their own data, add noise, filters, whatever, according to their own data, and then they send back their updated models back to the central orchestrating server. And now the central orchestrating server aggregates all those updates across all the edge devices to then stitch together the new updated view of the global model. So this would then take care of any concerns regarding the data leaving your premises at any given point in time. So like I said, it's a bit different. So instead of the data going to the model in fact comes to the data, and then the updates flow back to the aggregator.
Okay. And also the assumption seems to be that the only reason we use this data is to train the models.
Not actually use the model. I didn't hear the last part.
The assumption is that the only reason you use this data is to train the models. There is no other use of this data.
Matlab,
When the model will be used for serving.
You don't use it for any other type of querying, filtering, or anything like
you
that.
can't. So this again, great question. So the central orchestrating server is connected to the edges, right? The central orchestrating server is sending models to the edges, and those models are working on the data. Now, the question could be, okay, you know, what if it tries to corrupt the data by sending something else instead of the model itself? Is that the question here?
I think what you're asking is that the data will be used for training the model. That will be one. That will be for the federated learning. Also, there can be a system of query. For example, the central system will be asking certain questions to the place where the data resides, and there will be an answer, or you know, the insight will be provided, which will be a reply, which will be in the form of a reply, not the raw data which will be provided.
So the raw data is never the interface exposed directly to the central orchestrating server in this case.
So the central orchestrating server is going to respond to the queries you are asking. That is the purpose of the model, right? So you will be querying to the model, and model is going to respond there at the central server.
Yeah. There might be relevant data which may not be really very private, but at the same time may be used for multiple purposes.
So this is a lot of what I did yesterday as well. So yeah, you're right, absolutely correct. There would be relevant data which is not private. B, the data custodian is happy to share the data as well. Okay. Now those are scenarios which are not part of the PET ka concern at all. We are not saying that your traditional way of machine learning won't operate. Karega. We are just saying that, you know, that PET will address concerns wherever custodians are not happy sharing the data, or wherever, let's say, there is private information which they are not happy exposing. So this is more a complementary approach than an exclusive approach.
So it will be working on the subset of the data where the concerns are there.
तो हम किसी की दुकान बंद करने की बात नहीं कर रहे. That's the long and short of it.
Also, if there is a marketplace, you know, where, you know, the data can be sold, right? So if there is a proper marketplace and there is an incentive for the data provider to give the data, and without any concerns of privacy, in those cases, data can be shared, and where there are privacy concerns, we can use this kind of a model.
Exactly.
So that is the whole idea.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I mean, that should be an option as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's there. That is there.
It is very
That
much
is-
there. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Premises of the data provider, right? So I just want to understand the architecture, because we have different sources of data providers. For example, Jio has their own database, Airtel has their own, and yesterday we already identified couple of other authorities and bodies which can provide us the data. So how would your model will get the data from different sources? That is, I mean, kind of architecture. What will be the architecture?
Yeah, the base model, what we are talking about, right? We are expecting the data providers to give us the schema, just schema. We are not talking about the data. Then we'll be doing the aggregation of the schema, right? To come up with the base model, which will be deciding at the aggregator level, right? Then the base model will be pushed to all the data providers. So the question could be that there are varied sort of the providers will be there, right? One could be category of provider is going to be telco. The other could be the provider, could be the government entities there, right? So varied categories of providers will be there. So we have mechanism to do the aggregation and come up with a common model there where all the different schemas will be getting aggregated there. So the base model which gets created at the aggregator level, that will be pushed to all the parties who are participating as a data provider where the concerns are there around the PT, right? So they will be training the model at their edge, their location, like Airtel will be training the model at their end, Jio will be training the model at their end, and they will not be sharing back the model back to the aggregator, they'll be sharing the updates of the model back to the aggregator. And then the aggregator is responsible for aggregating all those different inputs which is coming and feed into that aggregated model. So now we have the aggregated model which has collected the intelligence from all the providers there, right? And now it is ready to respond and respond to the queries coming from the consumers of the use cases. Use cases are going to be the consumer of this aggregated model there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think we should conclude this session now, because if there are any concluding, if there are any concluding remarks in 1 or 2 lines. Yes. Okay, thank you so much. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will be calling upon the next next group, that is data provider AI and governance, and I would request Ms. Swati from KPMG and Mr. Dhaval Jariwala from Reliance Jio and Shri Rakesh Tiwari from DOT to please come up on the stage for the discussion of the data provider group.
Hi everyone. So yesterday we started with data and AI governance, and for today we are keeping this topic of data providers and the use cases which we are going to discuss today. So yesterday we primarily talked about the frameworks, the governance frameworks which can be dealt with different stages, from starting from the data collection to model deployment, post model evaluation and model testings. So what are all these different frameworks which can be followed at all these different stages? This is what we primarily discussed yesterday. So the kind of topics which we brought into the picture was synthetic data generation. That is very much important because at the very initial level we are not going to get the complete data. That is what the previous speakers talked about. We also talked about privacy enhancing strategies at different levels, starting from the data collection till data deployment and data and model evaluation. We talked about responsible AI and other frameworks which can be included at the very primary stage of data collection and data sourcing. Then comes the model building features, the stage of model building, where we talked about what could be the mitigation strategies, AI biasness, which can, AI bias mitigation strategies. There were the discussion around ethical AI frameworks, and then we got into a little bit technical aspect of the same topic, which is machine unlearning. We talked about machine unlearning because that is going to happen in, I believe, whatever use case we take, that is going to be the one thing which is, I would say, that would take place. We cannot say that machine learning is something which cannot take place in any of the use case which we are going to deal with, but definitely that is going to come into the picture. Then we had a discussion, very hot discussion around explainable AI, which we are keeping it for optional right now, but that was the primary discussion because that was something which came into picture when Meti expressed 10 schemes under EOI, which I got, which released in the month of February. So they portrayed 10 schemes which should be followed when we are doing anything related to AI. So now the discussion was to implement the same thing, not nationally or I would say for any kind of AI we are doing today, but at least at the level of Sangam Digital Twins and the kind of use cases we are talking about. Then also we talked about model evaluation governance, which is again coming into the last topic of the same governance framework. Yes, so we talked about what could be the AI ethical certifications should be there. Then we talked about the fairness tools. There are already existing many fairness tools in the market. And then the governance, AI governance testing frameworks. What could be the testing frameworks once the model is deployed? How do you want to mitigate the biasness? Whether it is holding the human values? What kind of transparency and accountability is bringing into the picture? So that was the major key point of discussion yesterday, which took place. And then we had a discussion around algorithmic auditing tools. So now we are bringing mathematics here, that what could be the auditing tools for it, because once your model is deployed, once it is tested, we need a proper authentication of that model, that this model is going to bring transparency, the kind of the architecture we are following, if it is holding the accountability or not. So that was the major discussion we had yesterday. And now today, what we are planning to do is, still we have to make a solid structure plan for it. But what is in my mind is that today we are going to we are going to inculcate the topic of discussion which we had yesterday around a use case. So that is something which we are going to do today, that if the strategies which we discussed today can be implemented in the use cases we are going to have discussion around today. So that was about just about the discussion we had yesterday. So you want to add anything?
Thank you. Yeah, it was a very healthy discussion yesterday. And from Reliance side, we are basically the data providers. So would like to mention that what kind of data that we are capturing that can be helpful for different use cases. So basically we are capturing data in 3 dimensions. One is the network data, which is our traditional network KPIs we can say. Second, we are capturing the customer data. And when I say customer, that is the customer experience data. So for example, the surfing that you guys are doing, you guys are making calls. So the quality of the calls, the throughput that you are getting, that is the customer experience data. And last but not the least is the device data of the users. So the data that we are having it's in terabytes. It's a lot of data. And so far we were using all this data just for the network optimization and planning. Now we have different use cases and we can see, I mean, yesterday I had a very healthy discussion in both the 2 sessions, and I personally found out that I have already gone through so many data that can be used in different use cases, which is not our traditional network KPI related planning or something like that. So definitely from data provider, we are looking forward for it to collaborate with you guys, and we can make wonders, definitely.
So everything moderator and co-moderator have already covered. It was a very intense, healthy discussion yesterday. I was listening, sitting behind regarding many queries pertaining to data privacy. All have many views on that. So I just want to say that the government has already laid down Personal Data Protection Act and other regulations, and it will come in future also many things. So whatever is there from the government side, that will be applicable on us also. But suppose if we feel that certain things are not covered and it can raise some problem, that we can flag. There are certain things that government has to do, and policy and making rules, that is part of the government. So in the breakouts, we can mention those things, and today there will be a presentation in front of secretary and moderators have to present. So there you can flag those issues, that, and it will be the responsibility of DOT to take up those issues, maybe with, even if it is related to some other department or ministry, DOT will do that job. So we need to think that this rules pertaining to data protection, privacy is the responsibility of the government, and we have to follow all the rules laid down from time to time. That is one point. Secondly, with respect to the technology, we have discussed a lot yesterday, and if we feel that by using certain application or technology on AI or modeling can pose some sharing related issues or anything, that also we can point out, and if any clarity would be required, that will be given by the government. So I just want to say that there are certain things that can be done by technology and industry, and certain things has to be done by the government. So we can accordingly point out such things. Okay.
Thank you, sir. So anybody from the audience has any questions or suggestions? Okay. So thank you so much for the insights. So we look forward to your presentation today evening. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we move on to mathematical simulations. I would like to invite Mr. Praful Pai from MathWorks and Mr. Sharik Iqbal from ANSYS. Okay. Okay, no problem. So I think we would like to hear from you.
Just this.
Hi everyone. Good morning. So we were looking at the discussion on mathematical modeling and physics-based simulations, right? So I'll start off with like who was in the room first. So I think we had quite a small group. There was academia present, NIT Trichy. There was someone from there. In terms of industry presence, I think we had modeling and simulation tool vendors such as MathWorks, like I represented them, ANSYS, IPG. There was one more tool vendor. I'll have to get the participant list. Yeah, Fluid yeah. And as well as one air pollution monitoring. Yeah, I think maybe they were the industry participants. And from the government, I think Chris, Center for Railway Information Systems, was one of the participants, right? So I think, so quite a small group, but I think there was scope for integration, like overlaps with some of the other horizontal verticals like virtual world creation, as well as with the previous one on AI model building. I think a lot of tools are looking at those capabilities. So I think it would be good to have some overlap there. Maybe look at combining the two groups together and so on. So we started off with looking at some of the use cases in the morning, right? And then maybe using that to base our discussion, right? So some of the digital twin use cases which we discussed was primarily transportation twins. So road and traffic infrastructure was one of the twins which was discussed, maybe rail infrastructure as well. Environmental twins, so pollution monitoring, there was one. Maybe water management, and that could be another which we could look at from a modeling and simulation point of view. And then integrated twins. So some people suggested integrated twins of, say, transport infrastructure with major building infrastructure like stadia or railway stations or airports. So can there be an integrated twin of the two combined together, right? So based on these, we came up with a set of requirements which might be good to have in modeling and simulation software, and maybe some capabilities which should extend to all of the other tools which integrate, right? I think what we came up with is at the very beginning, like each of the twins, I think there should be some basis in math, because otherwise it would be very difficult to interoperate between them. So some way of mathematical modeling, either as graphs for a transportation network or as different nodes for any say air pollution monitoring network or so on. I think it would be good to kind of look at those requirements. Finite element analysis or modeling was one of the other capabilities which was discussed. Multi-domain modeling, so modeling not just mathematically like some physical phenomena, but modeling things such as fluid systems or electrical systems or road transport systems. So there should be multimodal capabilities there which can integrate with each other. We also discussed about what should be the fidelity of the models, like at what level do you want to model things? So do you want to model at a very abstract level where you are just considering things as a nodes in a network, or you want to go further into modeling components like say vehicles on a road, or you're looking at modeling say systems or systems of systems, like so some amount of discussion went there. Integration with sensors like video, lidar, gas sensors or particulate matter sensors, and integration with actuators was another thing which would be good to have. AI and machine learning capabilities, especially around data generation, data labeling, modeling, and deployment, and explainability. I think that those would be good to have or good to integrate as well. We discussed reduced order models, which are being used to explain or reduce the complexity of very hard to explain problems as well. Database integration capabilities. So I think this is where I think we would want to look at what sort of formats or like in what sort of file formats or what sort of APIs would be available to pull in data from various data providers. I think that and that how can modeling tools sort of take that data in and look at doing that. I think most modeling tools have some sort of capability built in to read standard file formats, or some sort of API integration is already there. So I think that should not be a problem. We also discussed ability to create and run these mathematical models or AI models on edge, PC, cloud, or high performance computers. So I think depending upon what we want to model, I think a good simulation tool may look at providing all of these capabilities, or maybe just one specific capability as well. Integration and interoperability, I think, becomes very crucial as well, because like each tool addresses only a specific set of domains. So I think looking at how you can integrate and extend tool capabilities, or have tools talking to each other, I think that's a crucial part. And integration with virtual world modeling and 3D rendering, like so I think that is a subset of this. So integration with, like, say model like say something like an Unreal Engine or things like that would be useful to have. And finally, some sort of version control. Because everyone is maybe looking at updating these models in a disaggregated manner or in a distributed manner, looking at version control to kind of have these models update. So I think that would be good to have. In terms of focus areas today, I think there is definitely need for more diversity in the participant group. So I would call for maybe other participants who thought this would be something relevant. I think if we could take some time to attend part of the session, that would be great. I think we should also look at overlaps with other horizontal groups. Maybe this is a feedback to DOT to maybe look at how we could combine or maybe tweak some of these horizontal pairings to because there is significant overlap that I see with the data provider, AI model building and governance bit, as well as the virtual world creation and interaction bit. I think some open questions would be how to collaborate effectively. I think right now it was still different people. So I think we would want to come up with a viable way to kind of collaborate effectively, and maybe identify some existing databases to kick off some of the activity. So so identify some key use cases or something which is publicly available either at present or may get available in the near future to get started. Right. So I think these were some of the points which we discussed primarily.
Thank you, Praful. I think you have had a very elaborate discussion and you have covered, various aspects starting from the data integration, privacy concerns, modeling, and, the issues of interoperability. So I think it was quite a comprehensive discussion. So like you have suggested that there is a scope of integration or there is a scope of, merging the horizontal sectors. So we will try to have a discussion, a kind of a discussion in which the horizontal sector moderators can discuss. So we can definitely think about that. That's a good suggestion. Thank you for that. So I think looking forward for your, output document and the presentation today evening. Thank you. So any other questions from the audience? Yes.
Yes, sir.
How can we help? How can we help infrastructure planning with all these different siloed informations? So, for example, one example that was given by Asit sir yesterday is you are planning a piece of infrastructure. So, what would be the impact of that on student, children, urban planning, R&D, or whatnot? Let's say if you have 10 dimensions or 15 dimensions to a problem. And right now, each dimension is being taken care by the respective departments, right? So, are you planning something related to that where tweaking of one dimension, what will be the impact on the other dimensions?
Sure. Yeah, I think this is like exactly the interoperability sort of question. So I think one example which came up was say modeling say traffic flow at large events like say sports matches, right? In addition to traffic flow around the venue, I think what was discussed was maybe a model of say parking in the venue and things like that, and how can we sort of maybe distribute or allocate parking when booking the tickets such that this takes care of the people going out in a much more random fashion, which leads to sort of traffic not bunching up or So I think again here, so what might be useful is looking at maybe a 3D model of the venue itself, so which is typically done in one particular tool, and then there is a building integration system or a building management system, which is another tool altogether, and maybe a ticketing system, right, which is another tool, and a traffic management system, another tool altogether. So I think right now, what would be the best use case which I see based on the discussions is like if we can have like maybe take just one example or one thing and maybe try to model this as a prototype or a proof of concept, and try to bring together all of these different tools and have build these integrations. So some of these integrations already exist, and maybe if there are gaps, maybe those are avenues where there is scope for maybe a startup to kind of either build that integration, or maybe an existing industry player to build that integration, or that is where I think there is scope for value addition as well. So I think, so in terms of modeling and simulation, I think what we discussed was if we can take this POC and then maybe one use case and build this out and bring together different tools, then that would be a good way of dealing with the problem. So yeah, I hope like sort of answers. I know it doesn't answer it fully, but yeah.
Still trying to figure out.
Yeah. I think at the very last row.
So my question is that when we talk about the simulation and mathematical and physical simulations, uncertainties are also to be accounted for, and especially in the planning purpose, many unknowns are there. So how to quantify uncertainties when we are simulating things, and when we are simulating in a federated environment, how these uncertainties can be passed on. and considered. So it is not what you are simulating is not exact picture. It has some variations, and those variations may matter to some other stakeholders. So when we are planning something, it is okay for us, but those uncertainties may matter to some other stakeholders. So when we are talking about the interoperability, uh, in addition to the interoperability, how to communicate, how models communicate in these ecosystems, whether there are some standard protocols or there are standard procedures which we can list out as part of this document, and try to figure out that how these parameters will be relevant for the Sangam initiative. Can we do that exercise?
Sure. Yeah, I think definitely, sir. I think I think providing API access to some of these modeling tools, which abstracts out some capabilities, is definitely one way to kind of look at building that interoperability. So many of the tools definitely already have some sort of either programmatic interface or an API interface which provides this. So that takes care of one. On the first part of the question that you had, like on variability in the particular data or a process, and how we can model that, I think that came up quite a bit. I think depending upon what you are planning to model, I think that's a fair question. Like even if you look at synthetic data generation, how close is that synthetic data to an actual use case? And maybe this is not maybe private data, but maybe public data, or non-private data, like maybe say number of cars passing through a network, through a particular intersection, and things like that. I think so participants did have that concern, like how to model things and maybe take into account the variability, because real processes are far more chaotic and random in comparison to what we maybe described. I think you had remarked during the discussion that there are some existing mathematical models from based on say researchers have put out these models from other geographies, but maybe we want to look at creating such statistical models for the Indian context. I think that itself is a good aspect to look into. And then, but I think that is while that work is ongoing, I think it shouldn't stop like the downstream work of maybe trying out a digital twin, because no model will be perfect, I think, but we need to start someplace and at least and go along the way, so adjust your models as you go along, I think that is the best answer I think I can give you.
Thank you. Just three quick points before we close. First, I requested NSYS. I don't know. Sharik is not.
I think he's not here
well
at the moment.
Sharik is not well today. Anybody else has joined from NSYS? We requested them to prepare 3 models which are specific to our use cases. And they promised that they will be demonstrating today. Just I will talk to NSYS, and if we can go through, we can see that even the health digital twins or a transportation digital twins and other twins, and these simulation models. So we will get a better idea. So I will suggest that if you can also list out some of the tools and the utilities or some models which we can see and have a feel that how this can be useful for the Sangam initiative. This is the first point. Second, I have prepared few points what may be covered I will share on the mathematical and physical simulations. And third, we can interact. You can interact with metaverse session also, because I think it requires an interaction. So if we will get a time, spare time, so 10 minutes we can discuss during metaverse session.
Sure, sir. Yeah, I think we already just before you came, we were discussing exactly
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
like
thank
some
you.
overlaps with metaverse as well as with the AI model
Yeah,
building, the previous
yeah.
horizontal one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Next is virtual world creation session. So I request Mr. Manish from PwC and Prachi from Meta, if she's here. Then Mr. Rajesh Thyani from Hexagon and Shri Vineet Malik from DOT. And Asit sir to please come up on the stage.
Hello. So yesterday's session on virtual world creation happened in two parts, and right down the middle we had a course correction. Because in the first part we were talking about how to generate data. I mean, that was the assumption that everyone in the room was taking, and how to kind of get the data in place. And I think we covered a few of those aspects which might be useful later on also, like file formats, data formats, certain protocols on how to kind of certain platforms which can help us put together a decent virtual world. However, in the middle, Asit sir joined us and he was able to give us some insights which really set us on the right path, I assume, which is on the a use case where the focus was brought back into the infrastructural planning and designing. So I think the emphasis was on involving the rather emphasizing on the multi-sectoral flavor of collaboration. So I mean, using the virtual worlds to kind of co-design. So let's again, using the example of a school. If a school is being designed, there are multiple parties involved. There is government agencies, there are private players, there are people responsible for the construction, people, urban planning people, and so on. So multi parties are involved in doing this. So the idea is that while leveraging the virtual world to get things right in the first instance itself, right at the beginning during the design phase itself, if all the insights are taken care of, if all angles are covered properly, then the impact, later on, the impact and the costs involved in course correction later on will be can be eliminated. So that's the kind of expectation from this use case. And I think when we received this insight, I think we kind of aligned more or less everyone in the room. So the focus for today would be to resume that discussion today and start with identifying what all goes into creating a useful virtual world. Again, the formats, the technological, technology stacks, protocols, workflows, and the kind of parties who will be involved in kind of getting us there. So our focus will be to kind of cover the output or kind of come up with the output documentation which covers all these aspects. I think I've covered it. You want to add something?
Just I request to add 3 points from the gaming engine perspective. A gaming engine will be playing a very important role in this Sangam initiative. And there are 3 aspects of the gaming engine. First is that it provides a hyper-realistic picture because they understand how physics and mathematics works when they want to render a real situation. So those tools, those capabilities can always be used. Second is that planning can be like a game, multiplayer game, where everybody is suggesting something, and models are able to understand the consequences or the advantages of those actions. So assume a world like a Sim City or some game that where multiple stakeholders are there, and everybody takes action, and immediately the actions or the consequences of that action to the other stakeholders are known at the same time, and they are not adversaries. Other stakeholders are not adversaries. They are cooperating. They want to cooperate and they want to understand. So there may be teams who will be helping you to come up with a better plan. So there may be teams from every stakeholder, and there may be several teams. They may be competing with each other to come up with the different solutions. So planning becomes like a game, and how the gaming engine or gaming algorithms are useful for this purpose. And third thing is that when you try to understand that how gaming engine works and how they are different from the normal communication network capabilities, and how these gaming engine architectures are being adopted in upcoming 6G networks. We should understand those nuances, because it will help to make this platform at to a large scale. People will be collaborating, and this computation power and this collaborative functionalities will be available at the edge. How they will be rendered. There is a one difference then when movie is delivered, that is a time sequenced content. You know, what system knows that what is to be delivered at next moment. But in case of game, next content depends upon the user sections. Probably some character might have been killed, or some new constructions have come up, or some existing infrastructures have been destroyed. So you don't know. It will depend upon the user sections. The same manner, whenever collaborative planning is done, you don't know the actions of the stakeholders. You don't know what they will be suggesting, what they will be introducing, what changes they will be making. So the collaborative platform, what we are aiming, is quite closer to the gaming engine architecture. And those should be leveraged, and those will be clubbed with the new 6G communication technologies, because they are targeting to digital twin capabilities. So we will be raising our requirements to the 6G developers as well. Means as a part of this initiative, we will be understanding that if we want to make these things at a scale, and we want to have a high performance, then what are the requirements, and how the upcoming networks will be taking care of our requirements. So we can capture those, and we can keep that in mind when we are suggesting some solutions. Thank you. And one last point, what I have suggested in case of simulations, we should list out the tools and the utilities as a library, which we should aim for when there is a national core fabric. That these tools and utilities will be available for anybody who wants to create a metaverse or who wants to create a simulation model.
On library, and not just the tools and utilities, I think the models themselves, avatars and that kind of stuff. The content libraries.
Models may be there, which can be easily used by the sectors or the organizations.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it is like a democratization of the models like that. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much. So I think we can conclude this session of the moderators for the horizontal vertical. Thank you for participating. I request you to please grab your tea and move towards the breakout sessions for the vertical sessions. Thank you. Sure. मतलब इमिडिएटली से जब लोग आ जाएं स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि वैसे तो 10 बजे का टाइम था. हाँ ठीक है. I request you to check the halls again because there is a change in the hall from yesterday. So please check your hall and then go. There is no hall on the 3rd floor today. So there are halls on the 2nd floor and the Idea Lounge. Yeah, it's the same. The label is the same. There is just one hall change. अभी closing में होगा बस.